Welcome back. This is Elite Business Live. I'm Ollie Barrett, your co-host, with my mind buzzing with ideas, thanks to Chu Chow, the co-founder and now founder of Mintago. But here we are. We are live from London. And as if by magic, I'm joined by our brilliant panel. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Very nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Now, that look, I mean, very striking. What colour would you say that is?
I don't know. I look like a bit of a bumblebee, I think.
I think it's wonderful. It's sort of radiant orange. It's amazing. Now, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I do have a theory. That I could be speaking to Victoria Prue.
Yes. Hello.
Yes. Good. Thank goodness for that. Now, described, by the way, by Forbes magazine as the Airbnb of fashion. That's your business, Her, H-U-R-R. Is that right?
That is right, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we won't deny that comparison, surely. That's quite a compliment.
A big compliment, for sure.
Now, tell us and tell our guests about Her. It's peer-to-peer, we're lending to each other or borrowing from you?
Yeah, exactly. So a bit like Airbnb, but for fashion. Rather than listing a house or a flat, you can list your wardrobe. So we now have a community all across the UK of hundreds of women and thousands of women who make money from their wardrobes. So we're trying to push a message of investing in quality over quantity, actually sharing your wardrobe. And we now also power the fashion rental platforms for 65 brands, lots of contemporary cool fashion brands and Selfridges as well.
Wow, fantastic. And so this is just for women?
At the moment, yes. We're seeing lots of demand come from men, so stay tuned. We might have something exciting launching soon, but at the moment it's majority women's wear.
Right, well, I want to hear the lessons along the way. You're sitting next to the very snappily dressed Jay Richards, actually. Very nice to see you, Jay. How are you?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm great, thanks.
And you're onto a great thing here. How do I pronounce Imogen?
Imagine, yeah.
Imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
I've also, because you're working with a very particular community, almost a harvester of great ideas. You're connecting people.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So my name is Jay Richards, co-founder of Imagine, and our mission is to help Gen Z to shape their future. And we know the best way for them to do that is with brands, because brands shape countries and culture that politicians only wish they could. So what we do is we enable agencies and brands to crowdsource feedback, ideas, or insights from our community of Gen Z consultants. So you have about 2,000 of them globally, aged 16 to 26, from everywhere from India to Nigeria to Manchester.
Wow.
Super diverse and, yeah, really talented people.
Can we come and work with you? Is that all right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Well, I like it. Are you very secret squirrel about who you work with, or have you got an example?
Not at all, no. So PepsiCo, eBay, the NFL, who we're working with last week, Gymshark. So yeah, lots of really cool clients.
Gymshark, right. Okay, so give us an example. What have you managed to do for one of them?
Okay, which ones are we allowed to talk about? So eBay came to us and they really wanted to understand what Gen Z think of their brand. So we went to our community, we asked about 170 of our community to fill in 10 qualitative questions around what they thought of eBay. And one of the key questions was send us a video of your brutally honest thoughts about eBay as a brand. So that was really exciting to watch the CMO of eBay just get some really good insight from the community around.
Well, I like the sound of that, and I wonder in a minute what Gareth Owen makes of that for some of his clients. But before I get to Gareth, Jenny Young, how lovely to welcome you back,
Hi,
CMO of Tapit. Thank you very much for joining us back on the Elite Business Live stage.
Oh, second time lucky, very different this time.
But there's a certain absence of an audience, but it's lovely to see you tuning in. Tapit, I mean, what a year you must have had, because you're about creating great experiences which traditionally would have been face-to-face.
Yeah, and that's it. It's been a crazy year. So we started off at the beginning of the year because we provide cashless technologies for events and festivals, going, what on earth is going to happen? Yeah. Within 6 weeks, we'd realised that we were part of the solution and people don't want to touch cash anymore and businesses need to become more profitable. So it's been a roller coaster, but we're seeing some fantastic growth.
So just on the real core of, in the good times, if I can put it like that, what your vision is for Tapit. It's about a live event experience, but you're helping a lot of people.
We are here to make the live experience better so that fans don't miss a moment, they don't have any queues, they don't have to touch cash, and venues and businesses can keep the data and really understand their fans and make it even better. So we're excited.
Love it. Except for those of us who only go to the hot dog stand to escape from the people we were with in the first place. We don't talk about that.
Can't help you with that.
But it's coming back. Do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, we've been working a lot in the States. We've done some major deals with the NFL, Kansas City Chiefs, Jacksonville Jags. They had fans throughout the stadiums, throughout the season, got baseball starting, NBA. So it's great over in the States, and the demand in UK and Europe is creeping up now with festivals.
I like the fact that Brits are getting on with the NFL. This is great. Touchdown. Right. Onwards. So Gareth, good morning. Where are you, Gareth?
Good morning. I'm in rugby, so I'm smack bang in the middle of the country today.
Well, there you go. We'll stay with funny shaped balls for now, but that is good. All right. And Roast and TP. So TP's the group, but Roast is the agency. Have I got that the right way around?
Yeah, basically. Roast is performance media agency.
Love it. So what sort of organisations do you work with, and what do you help them to do?
So it varies a lot. As you can imagine, part of the joy of working for an agency is you work with lots of different types of businesses, anything from family owned to heavily VC backed to the privatized utility companies. And in the main, we try and make sure that, especially online, they're spending their marketing budget in ways that provides a return on investment for them. So a lot of search, a lot of social media, some work on their websites, SEO, etc.
Yeah, it's a bit like your favourite child question, but give us the client that excites you because you work with them.
That's not easy to say, but I'll go with one that's a fairly recent one, which is Uptime, which is an app that allows you to sort of learn information in bite-sized ways, similar to some other apps that are out there. But it's exciting, it's new, and they're getting some great results and a lot of traction.
Well, that's what are they called then?
Sorry, that's the app is called Uptime.
Uptime. Yeah. Oh, I like the sound of that. Right, we'll check that out. Okay, so my quick fire question, and we're going to get into some proper sort of conversation about this. But my first ever job was at Walt Disney World, and they were all about guests. I wasn't Mickey, by the way, just out of interest. Goofy, actually. What is the secret to delighting? Not because Matt Phelan yesterday talked about the meh in the middle. You know, you've got on an individual level people who are struggling, people who are having the time of their life, but then there's the meh. And we've all seen organisations who have a lot of customers who feel a bit meh about them. You've had experiences, each and every one of you, where you've delighted a customer. So I want to know the secret to that and a little example, if you wouldn't mind as well. Chu, I'll start with you.
Sure. It's about setting expectations and just going way beyond that. So delivering, I remember just connecting with audiences and giving them, our customers, and giving them more than what they paid for. The support, the little curriculum, onboarding them and getting them excited about the program.
The only challenge on that, and this was something Disney teach all the time, if we over exceed expectation, to what extent do we leave our colleagues and successors with a problem? Because that customer, if we send around the bunch of flowers or the Rolls Royce, will expect that next time. Can we get too carried away?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I think a typical example is our sales team. They'll promise everything, and then you realize, I'm sure you guys probably felt that way. So it's like, okay, can we deliver all this? Like, yeah, well, we sold it, so you better do it.
So how about you, Jenny? What's been a wow moment for a customer, and how do you do it?
I think it's about imagining better. I think as a customer myself, I anticipate what I want and I ignore my pain points. I just assume they're part of my pain points. And it's actually thinking about how things can be better. And I think Victoria's business is an amazing example in terms of the fact that, would I think about renting clothes? Probably not, but actually having that opportunity to have something like that, it suddenly sort of changes your mindset. And I think in terms of what we provide as Tap It, it's about helping people realise the pain points, the queuing, those kind of things. Just taking that away from people just helps make the experience better, and then to enable businesses to understand their fans and what they do and what they like, and making that communication really slick just helps the experience become incredible. And it just has to be simple. It's just about connecting needs and then going one step beyond. It doesn't have to be absolutely amazing what you do. It's just taking away something that makes life a little bit yuck.
Yeah, no, that makes good sense to me. So Jay, I don't know how you're going to tackle this. Is it how you delight your clients, how you see your clients delight their customers? What's your top lesson?
Yeah, so good question. I think they're both one and the same. So we always encourage our clients to actually talk to Gen Z. Because a lot of the time we make assumptions about what people may want.
And just remind us, because we go down Sesame Street, get our alphabet the wrong way around, but Gen Z, give us the frame, just remind us.
So Gen Z the youngest are 7 or 8 years old, and the oldest are 26.
26, so very similar to my age. Okay, good.
Yeah, so really close to you. So the great thing is that because we're always encouraging our clients to have those conversations with Gen Z, to understand what they want, so that understand what their pain points are, as Jenny was saying, so then they can then solve those pain points. It's exactly the same thing we do for our clients. We're going to them and going, what what are your pain points? What are the things that are really niggling at you with regards to Gen Z? Because they're quite an unknown generation type thing. So enabling them to see what that is, and then similar to what we were saying a second ago, just trying to go over and above. And we did this other day and kind of shot ourselves in the foot. We delivered 80 insights within an hour for a client. And then they were like, oh, cool. So next time we do this, we'll expect the same speed. But it's about managing those expectations and being like, hey, it can take up to 72 hours, but we can do it quicker if we need to.
Got it. Because actually, Victoria, I suppose if you think about the Rolls-Royce treatment, you want to scale what you're doing. So you don't want to get ahead of yourself on pace, you fall over. How do you wow your customer?
Yeah, it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. Our biggest challenge at Her is getting someone to rent a dress for the first time, like you just mentioned. And we know, and we have a super high repeat once they come back once they've rented once. There are a number of ways we do it. We always personalise and write a handwritten note in every rental that goes out, which probably most management would think was a bit of a faff and a massive time sink on company time. For us, especially as an early stage, we're only 3.5 years old, and an early stage business is absolutely crucial. And then we also have a physical pop-up as well. So we're really interested in the idea of blending the offline and the online. And we had a recent example pre-lockdown of a bride who came into our pop-up to rent an outfit and had been following us online. She's the Gen Z, the millennial, and our user base is definitely majority Gen Z and millennial. And her mum came in to rent a dress too. And it was the first time we ever did a mother of the bride rental. And I think just goes to show that if you can actually create something that's for a certain group of people, actually it can be a much broader thing longer term.
And did that mother-daughter moment, to what extent did you think, that's a lovely outlier and a great story, by the way, or maybe we need to broaden our sights, maybe we need to reimagine our customer?
Yeah, absolutely. So off the back of that, we had a big discussion in the office about, we have lots of cool contemporary fashion brands, Rixo London, Ganni. These are brands that are very kind of Instagram first, fashion first, but actually I don't come from a fashion background. I know nothing about how the fashion industry really operates. And what I'm interested in is having a UK-wide customer base that feels good dressing up and renting. So we've done a big shift, and hopefully it feels much more accessible. It's not just crazy fashion outfits. You can rent LK Bennett, Ghost London, great brands too.
Okay, now watch this space. So that's HURR, Her. So we've got Gareth, what is the secret? You work with some great clients. What's the secret to them delighting customers apart from hiring Roast?
Yeah, there's such a range, isn't there? And I think everybody on the panel's mentioned it. It's your customers. I mean, everyone who's ever worked with me will know I'm obsessed with graphs that go from bottom left to top right. And we as a business are quite pragmatic about customers. We see a lot of data. We look at reviews, we look at what comes back in terms of conversion rates on a website. And that's where we see in numbers customers being happy with the product. And that's a mixture of the website, the product, how it's branded, etc. I think that's always what's exciting about business, is that momentum point. I think even Chu mentioned earlier, pivoting early on with a couple of things with Perkbox, but once you get that momentum, you start to enjoy it, the growth, the graphs going from bottom left to top right, and you need customers to do that, and you can see how much they like your product as much as you can ask them.
Right, so if you've got questions on this, thank you, Gareth, please fire them in now. They could be to all of the panel or to an individual. I suppose my question is, how does somebody watching today collaborate with their customer? Because in one universe, that is a boring set of surveys and, dull focus groups. And yet in another vision, probably in the Nordics, it's joyful and there are fireworks. What do you think, Jay?
Yeah, so good question. I think the exciting thing is, especially with the demographic that we're working with Gen Z, they're super open to trying new things, and they're super open to actually engaging with brands. Because for a lot of our community, the thing that's important to them is seeing what's going on behind the scenes of a brand. They want to understand how a brand thinks, and when a brand says, "Oh, we truly care about being carbon neutral," Gen Z go, "Do you actually really care? Are we going to hear from the CEO telling us why they care? Is it just a thing that you're doing to try and seem relevant?" So I think it's brands can, especially with Gen Z are waiting to have a conversation with brands. So brands are able to come to our community or just go to your direct audience. I always say this to any client that we don't work with. I say, hey, just jump onto your Instagram and have a conversation with some of the folks that truly love your brand.
How does a company harness ideas from its customers without being seen to rip them off?
Yeah, it's a really good question. For us, we pay really, really well. So when you join our community, you get paid for every single insight you provide.
Like what? How much?
I'm definitely not telling you that.
but you pay you. Well, that was not a very good insight. So have £15. How does it work?
No. So the way it works is there's an onboarding system. So to come into the community, you need to be vouched for by somebody that's within the community. And what that means is it makes sure that, firstly, from a diversity perspective, we continue to have a very diverse community we have now. But it also means that we get super talented people coming through. And what happens is, say, for example, if Victoria and I are working together, and Victoria provides an insight, and I vouched for her to come in, but it's not a very good insight. Victoria will get a black mark on her name, but I will also get a black mark on mine.
Oh dear, look out.
Exactly. So our consultants know this when they're signing up to the community or they're inviting someone in. So it's very much, I only want to invite the best to come in, simply for the fact that they reflect on me.
Very interesting. So I would imagine that for Mintago, this could be rocket fuel for the future of the company. Positive collaborations with customers. What do they look like in practice, and how do you make them happen?
Sure, it's about so we have an account manager, really good account manager that talks to them every day. I think my advice is to really target two types of customers: those that love you and really understand why they love you, and those that don't love you or not hate you, but and understand what's going on, how can we fix it. And I think being open and honest, and also telling them that we're on a journey together. The financial health and well-being is a relatively new concept for a lot of people, and employers don't know how to act around the employees about that. So we have to kind of handhold them. But when they get it and see the value, an employee saying, "Hey, look, you're changing my life," that's so rewarding as an employer.
And one of those interactions could seem quite one-to-one. Is there hazard or benefit in connecting your customers?
No, not necessarily. When you say connecting, as in letting them know the other customers and how they're dealing with it.
Yeah, we'll say, rather than saying let's have this as a one-to-one, say why don't we get together and have a wider conversation?
Because I think for us, the theme of financial health is such a broad theme, and people are tackling it in so many different ways, and it's actually very helpful. So we've had a panel before where we talk about, okay, how do we solve this together?
Right.
It's a bigger problem than one company or one group of people. It impacts society.
And so how's it cooked up at Her then, Victoria? Are you sort of coming up with what you think people will want? Are they influencing the journey?
Yeah, I mean, we stay incredibly close to our customer. About 75% of our traffic and revenue actually comes directly from Instagram as a channel. So we use that as a massive channel for feedback. We think, I think probably every 2 to 3 weeks, we have a question box, which is very, very easy to put on an Instagram story where people can, and we ask and we collaborate very frequently, what 5 fashion brands have you seen that you would like to see on Her? And we use that and we drive a lot of our decisions and our data from those conversations. And I think the second channel that I think often overlooked by businesses, and I've seen a few smaller tech companies start to utilize it much more, as WhatsApp business chat. So we have a Her WhatsApp channel where we help people list their wardrobes, but also the moment you get people on WhatsApp, they start giving you real valuable advice. We all use WhatsApp day in, day out, and I think that's a channel that's only going to explode in terms of keeping close to your customer.
Because I think that Chu has got me thinking, as have you, Victoria, that we can all be very positive on some of these platforms, but you want to be listening to the haters, in a sense, the extremes as well. Yeah. But you probably don't want them sounding off about it on Twitter. I mean, how do you navigate this with Taffet? How are you doing it?
Well, I mean, we're quite fortunate in that we are white label, so we do support our clients to deal with customer issues. But I think it's just really important these days. Collaboration is just part of life, and as long as you're open and honest, there's so many channels and ways to communicate with clients, potential clients, or even haters, that you can do it in a way that's elegant, that gets you the information but makes people feel bought in and engaged.
Does anyone actively incentivize customers who fuel the innovation of the business, other than say, well, thank you very much? Is there a way to do that, Chu?
Well, not in our line. I think in our business, we don't need to really, because I think the incentive is already there quite clearly, that we're helping you solve a problem that you care about, which is financial health and well-being of your team. Yeah. And I think sharing knowledge and sharing how people are developing their financial health is actually very valuable for them, and then naturally come forth.
And naturally rewarding. We're going to get some questions from the audience, but very briefly, Gareth, how do you turn an agency into sort of a beehive of cross-pollination? Because you can imagine the silo, not at TP Group, where you go, well, I work on this client and that's the end of that. So how do we get the creativity sparking across the whole gang?
Yeah, that's obviously a little bit more difficult without a physical location to work from. But in principle, it works by we align people together in teams that are client focused, so they'll work on multiple clients together, and then they go away as specialists as well and work on the specifics of their discipline. The other thing that we do at TP Group, which is slightly different, is we have houses, a bit like Harry Potter, where people will compete against each other. Each house competes weekly and bi-weekly, and at the end of the year, we tot up the scores, and the winning house gets everyone in the winning house gets an extra day's holiday for the next year. There's still quite a fierce competition. There's a lot of passion goes into it. So a lot of cross-pollination of ideas comes from the fact that they collaborate naturally every single week, and I think that's true of any business really where you have silos. Is you don't really silos are important because they breed expertise. But they're also, it's worth breaking them to make sure that the entire team, the entire business is pointing in a very similar direction.
So slightly odd question for you then, Gareth. If someone's watching games, you know what? I don't feel my organisation is particularly creative at the moment. Forgive the slightly trite question, but how are we going to up that apart from get some more creative people in? Because we can all be creative, can't we?
Yeah. Creativity a lot of the time comes from the environment as well. I mean, I know a lot of businesses over a long period of time have done management away days, and just being away from the office is one way of making sure that people's minds are thinking more differently about the challenges in front of them. So that's one way of doing it. Is change the environment.
Interesting. So how do you all know what's basically a bit of a fad? Because you see all these shiny objects, don't you? I mean, I'm an absolute sucker. I used to call them sort of a corona squirrel over the last year, actually. And I'm like, oh, it's the next big thing. It must suddenly obsess me. Of course, what I'm doing is wasting my time, isn't it? So how do I tell the difference? I mean, Jay, you're very on top of all this.
Oh, gosh, I knew you were going to first. I think I wouldn't say I was an expert on it, but there's definitely there's a platform out there at the moment called Dispo, DISPO, and it's like Instagram, but when you post something, it takes a day to develop before you can actually view it on the platform, and I think in essence it could be a great idea, but at the same time there's the challenge of actually scaling that. Because it's kind of, after a while, people may get bored of it.
This is good, though. This is going to make us look very trendy. I like all this. Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks have commented on NFTs and...
NFTs?
Oh, gosh. Here we go. So non-fungible tokens. So it's basically... it's on
Non-what?
Non-fungible tokens.
Fungible?
Yes, fungible. So it's on the blockchain. And say, for example, if an artist... is not making enough money from selling their music on Spotify, they can sell their music via the blockchain directly to their customers and get millions for it straight from the customer and keep 100% of the sale. So things like that, people say are fads, but I think truly that could be the future for the creator economy.
So you must be scanning all the time for this sort of thing, Jenny. How do we know what's the good one, and how do we avoid the fungible bogeyman?
I think a good way to look at it is the things that you can see where there's almost no ceiling to it. It's the blue ocean strategy.
So and Jenny, how about this thing? Because you must be thinking in events. Oh right, is it a beacon? Is it Bluetooth? He says 20 years out of date.
Yeah, it's the joy of Gartner in the real world, isn't it? You know, what's going to be reality.
Right.
I think you have to hedge your bets. I'm a hedger. You know, you can see the art of the possible, and you know that somebody's going to win in each of these markets, but it's understanding who is going to be that winner. And it's not normally the first to market, is it? It's normally that cheeky second or the hungry third. You know, those are the people that are going to properly do it. So I think it's about understanding the concept, understanding the people in the market, and then making sure that you're just seeing all the nuances. And probably put your money on the third or second.
Okay, I've been going in for hungry thirds for years. Victoria, hedging's all very well, but ultimately you have to make some choices. To what extent do you distribute yourself across lots of platforms, the way you're building, what you're doing? How do you not get distracted, and how do you get a sense of what's going to be big?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think my personal opinion is rather than trying to do everything badly and averagely, pick one and do it well. So we picked Instagram as our main kind of social channel. And then I kind of live by a rule of thumb that probably runs wider than just fashion rental, that whatever is big in the States hits the UK 5 years later. And I think TikTok is a classic example of that. I think people really underestimate the power of TikTok and where the future is, given that we are a Gen Z and a millennial user base. But even older than that, I see lots of people of all different age groups trying to get get TikTok right, and some big fashion brands out there, the Farfetchers and the Net-a-Porters of the world, who are now trying to navigate that as well. So I think you can't afford as a startup to not try all of these things. Clubhouse is another great example. Everyone's talking about Clubhouse. Is it going to survive? Is it going to thrive? Because it's hot over lockdown. And for me, I think you have to try them all. You have to do a Clubhouse talk and you have to do a TikTok video, and you can't really have the luxury of just assuming that they might not work out. You've got to be part of that conversation, otherwise you miss out.
So on that's a fascinating thought, isn't it? Like trade winds, but for trends almost. So Chu, where are you looking for the next big thing? Because actually, good old Britain, we can be ahead of the curve on e-commerce, for example, ahead of our American cousins.
Well, I think obviously in my line of work, it's I think Brits are very advanced into the whole financial space. I think more so than Americans in terms of all the payment. I think in terms of getting really into the future of pensions and really disrupting that. That's for me is huge area of innovation. If you can make people think differently about their money, it's a huge area. And I think using social, like really getting people influencers to talk about money in the way that connects with the Gen Z and the millennial group is actually really powerful. But yeah, merging money with the society and social is really important.
And how about you, Gareth? When you think, let's get some real inspiration when it comes to how to innovate, particularly involving customers, who do you start gazing at?
Well, yeah, we do tend to look at the market leaders and the ones that are making the most noise. So I think we all mentioned Gymshark earlier, and you can always look at them as being a brand that understands youth well, understands emerging channels well, and you can take some inspiration from that. But we look at all digital channels, and we also look very carefully at whether or not our clients' audiences are realistically there at all, whether the format works for those brands. So there's lots of things that we throw in to kind of sense check the innovation that we're seeing. But yeah, we're always looking at anything that's new and trying to work out how good could this be? What sort of data do we think we're going to get out of it?
So Jay's got me feeling at least 10 years younger today, Gareth. Is there anything I should be looking at that you're spotting? Because this would be good.
I think there's nothing that I would bring to the table that hasn't already been talked about. I certainly think TikTok, I agree, is a strong platform for a lot of brands, not all. I mean, we work with, for example, insurance brands and brands where you can check your credit score. They're unless they have a particularly creative campaign that people want to interact with, their products are probably not going to lend themselves well to those sorts of platforms. Clubhouse as well. For a lot of brands, especially ones that have products where people want to talk about them and want to listen to people talk about them, that makes sense. So maybe Clubhouse actually might be better for financial products than TikTok.
Yeah, interesting. Clubhouse is on the panel. Are we clubhousing, Victoria?
We are, yes.
Oh, you are? All right, we should do this on.
Absolutely.
Ask Hannah Previtt about Clubhouse. I've seen her in and out of the rooms. Don't you worry about that. I wish we had a bit longer. We do have a bit longer, but I tell you what, it's a bit of a speedy chapter, this, so I think it's going to be quite quick fire. So I hope you've enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I thoroughly enjoyed that, and I know that our viewer will want to hear more from you individually. But for now, to Chu, to Victoria, to Jay, and of course to Jenny, welcome back as well. It's so lovely to see you again. Thank you all very much indeed. Please make your way to see Hannah backstage. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fab. Gosh, well, my mind is buzzing still. Was it Dispo or Daspo? I need to go and ask Jay a little bit later, but making their way backstage to Hannah. Just one quick note. After this, 12:05 on the dot, beaming in Charlie Mullins, founder of Pimlico Plumbers. No job, no jab, no jab, no job. He will be with us and we'll be talking all things talent, global talent. But for now, straight back to Hannah Previtt, who's waiting backstage.
Thank you, Ollie. Another fantastic panel there. And I don't know about making you feel younger. It actually made me feel much older than I am. So I look forward to quizzing Jay some more on Gen Zers. I would like to invite Jenny to come and join me first. Hi, Jenny. Some great comments and reflections there. I would like to grill you a little bit about the events industry and how you think or not the government has supported the events industry throughout the pandemic.
I think it's just been an incredibly challenging time for everyone in the events industry. There's been some really interesting funding opportunities coming through and support, and some people have been significantly supported through it. What we're seeing now is the whole question around insurance and festivals. I know that there's a lot of lobbying going on to make sure that the festivals have got the insurance that they need to make sure they go ahead. Obviously, as someone passionate about events, I don't think people have been supported as much as they could have been, but I also understand there's been a hell of a lot of people needing help across the country and across the world. So, it's difficult.
I know. I guess there was always going to be someone that, some industries that slipped through the cracks, as it were, and it certainly seems that events has borne a lot of the brunt there.
Yes.
So what events are you looking forward to getting back out to when you can?
Just so many. Just the thought of even getting into a club would be absolutely amazing.
A nightclub?
I know, can you imagine? I can't get my head around it. So, personally I'd love to get back to Ibiza and be able to get back into sunshine as well. There's some great festivals coming back this season, so I'm looking forward to just being able to smell hot dogs really in the air. That would just be an amazing thing. So yeah, can't wait.
Well, fingers crossed. And this feels like a first step, right? Us all being here in person. How exciting.
It's amazing.
Putting on grown-up clothes and shoes, etc.
I draw the line at the shoes though.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today. We are
thank
squeezed
you.
for time, but thank you for being so generous with your reflections.
It's been great to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenny.
Cheers.
Thank
Take care.
you. Next, Jay, if I could invite you to come up. Hello, Jay.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm good.
So I would like to hear a bit more about Gen Z. So what are some of the misconceptions? With millennials, we have the avocado on toast myth. What are some of the big myths we have around Gen Zers? And can you debunk some of those for us?
Yeah, I think one of the key ones that I always hear is that they're lazy. And what we found is that actually that they love to do side hustles. They love to have the full-time job, but also to be building great things on the side. So I think the concept of the older generations, even millennials, there's been this bit of a beef recently between millennials and Gen Z that actually was made up by the Daily Mail, but anyway, that's another story.
Like most things by the Daily Mail.
Exactly, yeah. But one of the interesting things is that Gen Z, they just love to graft. They want to just create cool things with cool people. So they're definitely co-creators, which is really, really cool.
I like that. And it also shows, I think, that perhaps that generation are more about doing their own thing, right? Rather than working for an investment bank for 40 years.
Yeah. But I think that a lot of them are actually striving for security. So they do actually want the full-time job that can pay the bills, but on the side, they're very much about following their passion. Similar to millennials, but millennials, we're like, oh, I want to be the CEO, I want to be the founder. With them, they just want to create cool things with cool people, and they don't really mind who gets the credit.
Mm-hmm. So for brands, anybody in a brand watching this, so your clients, how do they turn a Gen Z, not just from a customer, but to a fan, being really kind of evangelical about what it is they're doing?
Yeah, great. I think there's been a big push away from direct marketing back to brand marketing. So storytelling, really engaging with your consumer and understanding what they want to see from you as a brand, because everything's different. What they want to see from Nike is wildly different to what they want to see from Gymshark. So it's a brand understanding, what do our consumers care about, engaging with them in that conversation, and then telling beautiful stories about that and about your brand. And I think there's so much power in that, and that's what will show the long-lasting brands from the ones that will be fly-by-nights.
Mm-hmm. That's such a good, really important reflection, I think, for our audience. Thank you very much for your time, Jay. And in fact, I think thinking about storytelling, of course, that's kind of what we do as journalists, right? So it's all about, finding what your story is, what your truth is, and then, kind of telling journalists about it so they can distribute that to the world. Victoria, do come and join me up here. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
You do look splendid, although I'm not sure if we're a little bit too colourful here in our red and orange. Where is your dress from?
It's from a brand called Regina Fayot.
Okay, it is very, very beautiful indeed. So can you tell me a little bit about the startup journey for you? So how many years into Her are you?
Of course, so I am 3.5 years in. I co-founded Her because I am a millennial myself. I rented my house, I rented my car, and I'd looked at the boom and the massive rise in sharing economy platforms, and I genuinely believed that they were the next big thing. And I thought, we can rent everything. We can rent our houses, we can rent our cars. Why would we not rent our wardrobes? And the more I looked into sustainability and sustainable fashion, the more convinced I was that there was a massive problem around consumption that I wanted to try and address.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the thing here, it's driven by that mission. It's not just about having wearing beautiful clothes, having a bit of variety in our wardrobes, it's also around that piece of not going out and buying a new dress every time, you need to come to an event like this one.
Yeah, you're completely right. We live in a social media generation, first generation, where people consider outfits to be used or old when they've been worn 2 or 3 times, which is a crazy statistic. So we're all about trying to redefine newness, and whether you can rent this dress or another dress on her, you still get that dopamine hit of unboxing and wearing something new, but without the actual economic ability to own it, and you can just access it instead.
It's that classic, in again, the Daily Mail, when they talk about Kate Middleton and they're like, she's recycling that dress because she's been seen in public wearing it once before.
Yeah, it should be a normal.
Exactly, it's exactly that mindset.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely be signing up, although I might be slightly too old for your
Don't be silly.
services.
We have some beautiful dresses just like that.
Thank you very much for your time
It's a
today.
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Goodbye. And last but not least, hello. Your
Hi.
third time in the spotlight today, so I won't keep you for too long. Obviously, you're a serial entrepreneur, which I find fascinating. So as a journalist, I recently wrote a piece for The Times all about serial entrepreneurship and whether it gets harder or easier each time, which I think is a really interesting question in and of itself. So just quickly, what would you say is the most important lesson you learned first time round that you were able to apply to your second business?
It's never easy. I think that's part of the thing. So I don't think you should overcompensate success that you built and the skills you built in the before with what you have now, because there's lots of new things that you have to kind of learn again, and also the markets are very different and the team is a bit different. So the things that created success before, you just can't assume you can replicate right away. And so it is a lot about just relearning a lot of skills. Some of the core skills like management, yes, I can use that. But in terms of developing the product, understand product market fit, going out to the market, those are all different and they're all new. I think so. So you almost have to temper your expectations. What can you carry across? And that's management, interacting with people, being a leader. It's very transferable, but everything else you just have to accept that it's new.
I'm thinking a bit more deeply about kind of management, and obviously we don't have loads of time, but it seems to me that most entrepreneurs, or lots of entrepreneurs, might be first-time managers, right? And it's one of those things. Do you learn it on the job, or do you read books? How do you learn to become a manager when you're running a startup for the first time?
Just find people you can trust and talk to them. I think that's the key thing. That's probably the fastest thing. Some people read books, and that's good as well. But nothing beats just having really precise questions being asked to people around you that you trust. Say, look, I have this one particular issue. How should I address it? And I think that's the key thing. And I think the more you ask, hopefully the more you get back, and ask a little from a lot of people versus the other way around.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I heard that one earlier. So, and in terms of kind of the business owners themselves, how much should you be getting involved in the day-to-day management, or is that something that you can outsource so that you can really focus on the kind of strategy and the growth of the business?
It's about delegating what you're not good at and bringing in those people so you can focus on what you're good at. For me, it's about right now, Mintico is a small team. So we're involved with everything, and that's the beauty of that stage. It's like because we're all very involved, we can create new opportunities and pivot and change, and we want to be all involved. So it's too small for delegation, but as you get bigger, absolutely, you got to focus on the strategy, because getting involved in the nitty-gritties versus and being at the strategy level, it's actually really complicated as you get to like perk box stage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, some really great advice there. One quick one: who would you say was the most important first hire this time round?
Well, it's I think our head of product and operations, so Paddy, because he was instrumental in just building things and getting things to work, and almost the opposite of me, meaning I'm more the blue sky thinker and actually getting the ideas in, but execution is so important, right? So you need the right people, but also Daniel as well as our CFO, the number side of things I need help with as well. So yeah, definitely a core team. Now we have Claire and Terry as well to join, but that's really us right now. And obviously we're going to hire more people, but when you're at that stage, it's so important you have the right people. Missionaries, not mercenaries, I'd say.
Absolutely. Well, it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, kind of complementary skill sets, and it's a theme we've heard a lot about here, about, kind of complementary skills, plugging the gaps where there are those. Thank you very much for your time today. That's been extraordinary. So that was Chu Chow there with his final tips and words of wisdom for you.